I'm really excited for today. This is a lot of information, good information. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our first colleague to talk to us about poinsettia. So hopefully you all have your listening ears on and we're ready to go. Derek, thank you for being here today.
You're welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
I appreciate it, Paul. Don't
Take it away. Take it away.
How many people have done docent or volunteer helping with the holiday show in the past? Many of you. So, see if this thing works. Does that help? A little bit? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the door to maybe not distract anybody. Okay. Well, so quite a few of you. I see a lot of familiar faces from classes and other volunteers, so welcome back, Holiday Show 2017. I'll talk a little bit about so much behind the scenes. I'm not going to talk about the show, I'm going to leave that for Pat Skase, which many of you are very familiar with, our full display supervisor. But I'm going to tell you how we got to the point where we're at today. Need that too. The production side, how we started, because I know a lot of questions come up from the visitors. Where do you get your poinsettias? How many come? What kind do you have? When do you start them? Simple questions like that. So, do you spray your poinsettias? So, I'm going to answer a lot of those questions. And if you have any questions, please raise your hand. I'd be happy to answer them. Can everybody see that? Okay. So, if you've taken my holiday show class in the past and behind the scenes, this is pretty much the same. So, if you want to take a nap, that's okay. All right. So, first off, I like to start with fun facts. We always like fun facts. Holiday show, 75 years, going over 75 years now. Dating back even when we placed them in the old palm house, old floral display, also in the climber shrine, used to have poinsettias out there. The model trains, you'll talk to Pat about that. She'll brief you on them, but all of them are Lehman Gross Bond. And they're all owned by MBG, so we don't lease them, we don't rent them. And we've had the trains in the show since 2003. I'll say one thing about the trains, kids love moving parts, as you know that. We all, even I love moving parts. So moving parts, trains are a big part of what we do. And as you go to the show, you'll see that we have the timbers, and a lot of kids try to get up on the timbers to see the trains and the little displays that you have, that we have on display of the people and the action shots and so on. That's always a troublesome when it comes to the plant material. Hopefully by me talking, I'll give you an idea of how delicate our plant material is. So if you see a kid, you just, whatever you gotta do, get them out of the floor, get them out of the bed. All right. So each year is a different theme. If you've come to the garden the years past, you volunteered for the doses for the holiday show, you'll notice each year is a different theme. This year is the poinsettia. Last year, what was last year?
All for the holidays.
Only for the holidays, that's right. I'm already thinking about summer next year, that's what we do in production. Sorry. Over 6,500 plants are produced for the show, for the holiday show. That's a big number. A lot of people want to know how many plants are usually in there. This year we have at least 74 species and cultivars in this show. A lot of people want to know how many species. 74 species and cultivars combined. Process, start to finish. How do we do what we do? Well, a theme is selected at least 24 months, 2 years in advance to the opening of the show. So Patty's already put together a theme, understanding what's going on, so that way she can start selecting plant material. That's very important to us because we also have to select plant material and grow it onto a maturity size that she may need, not only for the holiday show, but also for the upcoming orchid show. The full display supervisor, she creates a design. The design is based on the floor, and then also a color scheme, also that relates to the theme of the show. Props are designed and they're built here behind the scenes. A lot of people don't know that. They wonder where do the props come from. We built quite a few of them here on site. And some of the buildings in the past, if you remember, we had a gazebo and it fit right through the door, about 2 inches clearance. So we measured the door for our props. It's pretty amazing. Plan requests are submitted. So then full display, supervisor is going to put the requests in to our database, and then we review them with her, saying yes, you can have that, no, you can't have that. And then I'm going to order the plants. Essentially, I'm going to order the plants. I order the plants a year in advance, or well, 10 months in advance. So We have the order in. It's January 2nd. We're already looking forward to the next holiday show. January 2nd this year, we start planning for next year's show. And then they will get ordered from January to February based on availabilities. Educational interpretation is requested during this process as well. And then we produce the plants here at the garden, and then eventually it's showtime. So plants start coming in as an unrooted cutting or plug or seed. Well, the poinsettias start around 4th of July. We actually get them in 4th of July that week. That's their single stem standard poinsettias, 4th of July. The rest of the material starts trickling in a couple weeks after that. The pinched poinsettias, the ones that you see, the mounding poinsettias, those always come in 2 to 3 weeks later. And I'll talk a little bit why the dates are so off. So the greenhouse complex, we have almost 48,000 square feet to produce plant material, not including what's also behind the scenes as part of our permanent living collection. You take about half of that, drop it down about 24,000 square feet. That's what we have to produce the holiday show here on the garden grounds. Why? Space is of essence. So greenhouses are split into zones based on the crops and environment required. That's so important because the hibiscus that we grow have to go in a certain greenhouse with higher light, higher temperatures, higher humidity. And we actually start the hibiscus for the show in April, typically as a plug. Now sometimes we'll actually use the hibiscus from the year before, and we'll take cuttings from them and root them, and actually start them a little bit earlier. Okay, so they start off as a little cutting, grow 2 to 3 plants per pot by the end of the year. All greenhouses are connected except for 3 polyhouses. That's very important because we can move our plants up from the greenhouse complex without going outside. Weather's been a little bit favorable this time of year, but you never know. Come November, when it's time to move plants, we don't want to go outside with poinsettias. I see a lot of people do it, of course. So it works really well for us. We can just come right up the ramp into the holiday show, and we are good to go. Save the plants. Everything is vertical, meaning all greenhouses are on their set points. If there's a backup generator, so if the weather gets terrible outside and power goes out, we have a backup generator. There's set points for daytime temperatures and nighttime temperatures. All on an alarm, all monitored 24 hours, 7 days a week. Okay, so we never have to worry about a crop failure unless it comes down to us as a grower as a crop failure. Typically our equipment holds up pretty well here at the garden. All covered with glass. Glasses are very important because that lets the light in or shades. We put a shading compound on the light, on the glass. But the glass is very good because it gives great light diffusion this time of the year. Plastic tends to fade, and that's very important with lighting. With poinsettias, hibiscus, begonias, you need the right adequate amount of light, right amount of foot candles to get them to flower, to get them to actually start setting buds. So we like the glass. We don't cover the greenhouses with plastic, except for 3 polyhouses out back. We have 10 full-time staff members. Now, out of those 10 full-time staff members, 8 of them are dedicated to the show, for the most part. 8 of them are dedicated to the show in one way or another. Now, all 10 people help out. 8 people are dedicated with propagations and the growing and moving plants. Okay? That's nursery staff. Okay? And then we have also 60 volunteers that help us out throughout the year with sowing of seed, taking cuttings, watering, deadheading, pinching, you name it, repotting, transplanting. They help us throughout that time of the year. All right, so our rule, we need to provide healthy and pest-free plants for the show. Document accurate plant records. The plants are only as good as the records that come with them, because we have to be able to tell a story, have to relay the information to education department for interpretation. So we have to follow through with all of that, and then also for our own records of what we used the years before. You know, we try to switch it up, make it a little bit different each year. Produce complex plants with high expectations. Everybody knows Missouri Botanical Gardens. Everything's got to be the best. There is no such thing as anything lower than high quality. That is what we are expected to grow. So we actually grow extra, so we can have some margin of error if we have to. Also, we have a lot of problems with falls into the beds. Kids, a lot of people like to take pictures and keep backing up, and then before you know it, they fall into the bed. So we also grow extra plants for instances like that. So everything that's in that show is not everything that's been grown. There's plenty in the back behind the scenes in the greenhouses waiting to replace any damaged plants. So the plant schedule, once the sign's been submitted, I ordered to the vendors, kind of touched base on this. The target date is always going to be for the show, usually about a week before install. That's our target date that we try to hit for flowering, for lighting. So in the chrysanthemums that go into the show, we have to stagger that crop. The mums only flower for about 2 weeks and then they're spent. So we actually have 3 crops of mums that go into the show. We stagger them every 2 weeks. So we turn the lights on them in the middle of the night. We use our LED lights down in the greenhouse. And they're photoperiodic. So they're going to flower when the days are shorter than the nights. So we put growing lights on them. We turn growing lights on them in the middle of the night while they're vegetatively growing. And that distinguishes that it's time to grow. It's not time to flower. So we're ready for them to flower based on their response group, because every mom has a response group, meaning from this point, it's going to be 8 weeks until they flower. So that's how we create our dates, and then we'll turn the lights off in the middle of the night, and they'll start setting their flower. So that's how we're able to get mums in November and December, okay? Because we alter the light. We trick the mums, essentially. Also, we have to be conscious of some need more darkness. So calantros, we put them under a black cloth starting in August. The calantros have to have a longer period of darkness before they can flower. If they go longer into September with more than 12 hours of daylight, they're going to actually be delayed. They won't even have their buds. Okay? So that's the challenges we have to face. We have to black cloth, and we pull the black cloth every day at the end of at 3:30. 7 o'clock in the morning, we pull it back open and let light in. So we have to alter their flowering response groups. So we're tricky. We manipulate. So we determine what location of plants to be grown. That's my job. Each greenhouse is different. Every crop is different. As you know, here at the Botanical Garden, the crops are always changing. We have different needs of plants and where they need to go. It's not your typical retail where I grow 1,000 of this, 1,000 of that, 1,000 of that, 500 of this, and that's it. Every year is altered because we're also preparing for spring, preparing for summer next year. So it's a jigsaw puzzle with plants in a greenhouse of only 48,000 square feet. You cut that in half, it makes it even more difficult. Okay? So planting, long-time planting is what we have to do to alter around the crops. So when the plants arrive, we'll order them from around the country as a plug, a cutting, or a seed, and we'll start propagating that week when they arrive. We don't let them sit around. We always transplant them up into the pot size that they need to be in, based on request by the full display supervisor. Cultivars this year, I can read these off. They're also on the labels in there. We tried some new ones this year. This thing got a laser. Look at there. All right. I'm not very tech savvy.
That's okay.
Cultivars. So we have our typical ones. Prestige Red, you're going to see that's our most popular red one. That's a great grower. We're going to traditionally grow that every year because it's reliable, it's tried and true. But we've added some new ones this year. Ones that have never been here to the garden, like Gold Rush and Envy. Envy is a great one. It's green. It's a green poinsettia. If you haven't seen it, it's really beautiful. Ice Punch is in there. Winter Rose Early, that's the double flower. So the kind of old traditional one. Some people love them, some people hate them. So I'll let you be the judge. Peter Star White, that's a good one. Chianti, that's a late one. Dark burgundy color. So it's a lot of different colors to go with the theme of poinsettias. And as you walk through the show, you'll notice that we try to make you feel at home like you're in Mexico, essentially. Latin America, where the poinsettia is native to. Total plants, 1,417 plants were requested by full display supervisor. That is not the number of plants we grew. We grew much more than that. Okay, gotta have that back up. Grown for the holiday show, Kemper Center, Linnaean House, Ridgeway Center, and the director's residence. Dr. Wes Jackson, gotta have his poinsettias too. So, no, he was home for the holidays for him too. So, Linnaean House, we grow for them. We don't contract any of our poinsettias out. All the poinsettias you see on the garden grounds are grown here. A lot of people ask the question, poinsettias, why do I have to turn the lights off? And maybe most of you know, if not, I'll go ahead and fill you in. They're photoperiodic. As soon as you turn the lights on, you're going to delay the flowering or delay the bract initiation. They need less than 12 hours of daylight to set their bract. And they say, well, hold on, Derek, they're in Mexico. Well, Mexico gets over 12 hours of daylight. How do they still get color? Well, if you really look at the ones that are in Mexico that are native, their bracts are very small. So they'll still put a bract on, bract meaning, you know, the color, but it's just not going to be as big. So they need that dark period to create that big bract, that big, beautiful bract. And everybody understand when I say bract? That's the color, and everybody knows the flowers are right in the middle, the yellow. That's the flower, the poinsettia. So if we were to trigger, turn the lights on down in the greenhouses, that would actually delay a lot of our show. We wouldn't have those big, beautiful poinsettias that you see. So we put out a light memo to everybody in the garden. Everybody and their mother do not turn lights on in the greenhouses, okay? Because if they do, it can ruin the show. Security has to go through with a flashlight at night, so just a simple flip of the switch for 30 seconds can delay them. So it's very, very important that we do what we do and stay on top of it. Poinsettias, growing factors, I mentioned light, very important. Fertilizer, we alter our fertilizer schedule depending on the height. So Patty, our flow display supervisor, she has a certain height that she's requested for all of our, for different crops, including the poinsettias, including the cyclamen, the clamshell. She wants a height. So that's going to determine our fertilizer and our rates. We use a liquid soluble fertilizer that goes right into our water lines, injected into the water lines, outer hose, and into the pots. Soil, we use a soil mix. It's from Ball Seed. Actually, it's a new mix that we had changed over for our liking. When you buy a lot of soil mixes nowadays, Pro Mix, Bafford, Mix, Burger, all of them, they come pre-made. You know, they're prefabricated mixes based on a consensus or an average of what everybody likes. That's not what we need here. Here in St. Louis, our water type can be very hard, can be very alkalinic. Our pH from the city is 9. Ooh. It's very high coming here to the garden, and we use city water for growing our poinsettias. So we actually need to lower that pH to make it adequate for the poinsettias. So that's why we use a liquid soluble fertilizer to lower that pH, but then also using the soil, we can lower the amount of limestone that they put in, gypsum, into the soil. A lot of those pre-made mixes have a certain level of gypsum. So we alter our soil mixes, which is actually blended right over across the river in Sauget. So it just comes right over and it's fresh all the time. Little peat, little pine bark mix, some vermiculite in there. But yeah, it's been working really well. Whiting agent, we've been growing our annual bedding, a lot of our perennials. It's been a great mix for us because we can alter it and they'll do whatever they want. They blend it on site for us as we like it. So we've done soil tests in the past. This one's been working well. And then we inoculate it with mycorrhiza. So mycorrhiza is a beneficial fungi for the soil. It's going to give you a better root ball, give you happy roots, happy fruits, right? Okay. Temperature changes. Everybody knows, I said poinsettias come in July. It is hot in July, as we all know. So we have to mist our poinsettias, kind of cool them down, shade them more if we need to. We alter our temperatures as much as we can to bring them down. Like cyclamen, they love it cold, but they love high light. So we can't shade them too much, so we put them right next to the cooling pad. So we try to keep them as cool as possible. Temperature changes, and then actually as winter comes, as October, we start lowering the temperatures because we want to slow down the vegetative growth, and we want to hold on to those blooms. That's what we're trying to do. We want to hold them, make them last longer. When you lower the temperature, then you got to watch out for disease. And so it's always a playing a game, growing. So the horticulture triangle, everybody maybe know, it's just the triangle. If you have the environment, you have the pathogen, and you have the host, you're going to have a problem. If you have 2 of those 3, you're okay. If you have 1 of those 3, nothing's going to happen. But if you have all 3, you're going to get a disease or a pest. So IPM, very important what we do. Everything is sterile as much as we can. The soil is sterile, as I mentioned. The pots we sterilize. We reuse the pots, but we soak them in algicide. We heat wash them. So they come in nice and clean. We sterilize all the greenhouses with hydrogen dioxide, because having a sterile environment is going to prevent, be proactive towards any diseases or pests in the future during the crop. Just to be on the safe side, I said high quality at the garden, right? We're going to have high quality, we're the best, at least top 3 in the world, right? So we do integrated pest management where we will use beneficial insects. And then for some, we will actually, the poinsettias will drench them with one pesticide. It's a systemic. But everything else is beneficial insects or beneficial fungi to grow the crop. We like it because, one, it's safer. It's safer for the visitors. It's safer for the applicators, including myself and the growers. It's environmentally friendly, and in the long run, it's actually cheaper. If we're doing putting our cards right, we're actually making money by using that. We're saving some of our budget. And it's a great story behind how we produce plants here at the garden. And we like to share that. So if you ever see an insect in the show, it might actually be a good bug, not a bad bug, because they do move with the plants. All right. So we release different insects like Incarcia and Eretmoceras. That is a parasitic wasp. Now they fly around, they're not going to sting you, they're very, very tiny, about the size of a gnat. But what they do is, the most common predator for a poinsettia, for instance, is whitefly. Whitefly will actually lay its eggs underneath the leaf, and it creates a honeydew. Honeydew creates fungus, and then fungus kills the plant. Then we have ants, and then we have other problems. So whitefly is terrible, and then it'll actually take chlorophyll out of the leaf. So we release the parasitic wasp for that purpose every 2 weeks on the crop. Even though we don't have whitefly, we still release them. It's a great insurance because as weather starts dropping outside, all the bugs like to go inside too, just like we do. We like to stay inside when it's cold. So the bugs like to come in when it's getting cold outside, so we're always ready for them, and we beef up our insects, and we get them from California too. All right, so we've actually been using integrated pest management, IPM, in the greenhouses for over 6 years now. We haven't sprayed orchid range in over 6 years with any pesticide using this. And we try to do as much as we can with the holiday show as an IPM. Some we're kind of limited to where we have to use a pesticide, but very small numbers. We're trying to reduce it as much as we can for the safety of our visitors, safety of our environment, and safety of staff. So far, so good? Nobody's falling asleep yet? Okay. Scouting, that's very important, so we put up sticky traps. I'm sorry I don't have any pretty pictures. That's what the show's for. Right. Scouting, we put up sticky traps. We scout through the greenhouses every week because every week it changes. To pinch or not to pinch. Poinsettias are pinched to give them lateral branching and more ideal and aesthetic look. Poinsettias that are not pinched are called single stem standards or straight ups, PGRs. Okay, what that means, I said poinsettias come in 4th of July. That is the standards, the uprights, the single stems, however you want to call them. They come in July, around 4th of July. And then you wait another 2 weeks, and that's when the pinch plants come in. So we never pinch the ones that come in July 4th, meaning we pinch them down to where they have 4 or 5 nodes so they can create a lateral branching, give you that nice beautiful shape of your common poinsettia that you see in the show, or sorry, in the stores. Straight ups, yeah, standards, single stems, we let them go. We try to make them grow as fast as we can. We put them right next to each other. We want to get that height that Patty needs. Okay? She needs that height for her show because she wants to avoid putting as many bricks into the pots as possible because that's less labor. So I get it. Sometimes we have to though. So that's what I mean by pinched and straight ups or single stems. So if anybody asks you, that's what we do. We use plant growth regulators on the poinsettias to create more of a uniform look. So all the poinsettias are nice and even, high quality, so that way Patty she knows what goes where. You know, she's not like, well, this one's bad, I'll take this one's bad. Everything is high quality. So we want to be even. PGRs will actually force more branching, give you more lateral branching, and then more bract formations. So, don't worry about that. Other crops. So we grow other crops. Each year, the crops are determined by oil display supervisor. We grow seeds, cuttings, plugs, divisions. In cyclamen, hibiscus, begonias, I talked about the mums, the peppers, coleus, calanchos. We use quite a bit of plant material. You'll see even foliage. You'll see schefflera in there, some Leo Verucola in there. Every year we had a little bit different. This year, since it's poinsettias and maybe a little Latin America theme. There's a little bit more agaves in there, cacti, succulents. So, but each year, even though we grow these ones for the most part, they're different cultivars every year. We're switching up to different colors, keeping it interesting. And that was it for me. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you grow any poinsettia topiaries?
We have in the past. I've grown them. We have to start them so early. The problem with starting them so early is then it overlaps with summer production, and we only have so much space for them. And right when it's spring, summer, that's when all the insect and pest populations are just ramping up, and they love to go for poinsettias in spring. So we've grown them in the past. We have to start them earlier, but we typically don't because we have an overlap. So that's fine.
Do you sell the St. Louis potting soil mix commercially?
We do not sell it, no. We do not sell it. That's a great question. That's a great question. It's a secret. It's a secret. You know, we're still trialing it. I mean, we've been using it for a little over a year now. We're loving it. We want to see how far it goes before we recommend to everybody else. I don't want to say, hey, try this, and then they come back and say, Derek, you're a fool. This didn't work at all. So we're trialing it. It's working well. As far as selling it, we do offer a compost mixes from our compost piles here at the garden in some local nurseries. We didn't know that, but the one we get from Ball Seed, that's a wholesale mix. That'd be something I have to talk to Ball Seed about, or Old Castle across the river. Yes, ma'am.
What's the difference between species and cultivars?
Species, okay, so species is exactly that coming out of the wild. It hasn't been tampered, it hasn't been hybridized. A cultivar is essentially that, it's been hybridized. They've taken another species, cross it with another species, and they come up, say you take a red flower and a white flower and they make a purple flower, they're going to say poinsettia Derek Lyle. You know, that's what they'll make it, something. So that becomes, the Derek Lyle becomes the cultivar. That's the cultivar name. So if you ever see a lot of the petunias, you have Super Tunia, Tidal Wave, Bright Red. That's a cultivar name versus going to just a regular petunia species. Yeah, you see that with everything. Vinca, you know, this cultivar, just a hybrid, another name for hybrid. Yes, ma'am.
When the show is over, what happens to the plants? Do you keep them or?
We throw them all in the compost.
Wow.
As growing a poinsettia, I'll tell you, it's very rewarding when you put it in the show after growing it for 6 months. And then a little kid comes by and falls and smashes that plant that you spent so much time on. It happens. But then after that, you get so frustrated. It's kind of relieving, you know, like it's smashing poinsettias at the end of the show. After Christmas. I'm sorry, that's personally, but the holidays are over. You gotta get rid of them. Let's move on to pansies in spring. All right, great. No, they all get composted. We do say we have some plant material that goes back into the living collection that gets used for spring and summer displays, and then also for our permanent collection where it just stays in the greenhouse until it's requested later on down the line. So, but mainly poinsettias, cyclamen, mums, anything that's a fleshy tissue like that typically goes right to our compost. So at the end of the show, they're ready to go to the compost because they're tired. You know, so. Pardon me?
And you're ready for them to go too.
Oh, absolutely. No, we have to strike that show. We only have a week or about 2 weeks to pull that show out and get ready for the Orchid show. So yeah.
You said you had 10 people working, growing, you know, for this show.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of specialized in then doing other things. You don't work on the Orchid show also, do you?
Oh yeah, we do the Orchid show too. So the same, it's mainly our orchid grower, curator, Babs Wagner. She manages that collection, and then all of us kind of put together, move the plant material in, and help care for it while it's in the display. So we all have a part with that. Everybody in the nursery and the greenhouses certainly help. All hands on deck when it's showtime. Oh, so you first.
Where did you say the cuttings and your seed come from?
Okay, so cuttings we'll get from multiple vendors. Some of them we'll actually get from Mexico or Guatemala, depending on what it is. Impatiens, I've gotten from Guatemala, but we order through Ball Seed or through Ivy Garth or through Burpee, Selecta. You name it, we order from different vendors, whatever's available, whatever's the cheapest, and the best quality is what I look for when ordering. So each year different, it differentiates, but typically it's mainly through Ball, and Ball Seed is essentially just a distributor, and then they have other people underneath them that they put availabilities out and we shop through them. So I may order through Plug Connection or through 4-Star, Pleasant View, it's just what's available. Yes, ma'am.
Of the poinsettias that you listed up there,
Mhm.
are there any that are historical or rare?
None up here, no. We do have a species in the show now on display. I think Jen maybe will talk about that.
Okay, so one species, and these are all newer cultivars?
These are, some are new, some are very tried and true. This one, Poinsettia, where you at? This, I didn't put it up here. Poinsettia pink, that is not even a true poinsettia. It's a really hot pink. It's actually a hybrid with another plant. I don't even know what the other plant is, but I know it's euphorbia and crossed with something. But it used to grow very weedy. It started off as Dolce Rosa, and then it changed to Love You Pink as the name, and now it's Poinsettia Hot Pink. That's what the name is. But it's nice. It works very well. So that one's a new. A few of them are new. Ice Punches came out about 2 years ago. But we do try to trial them before we put new ones in, because we want to know the growth habits. We don't want to create a chaos of weeds and stuff. Some different ones, they all grow different.
Derek, we have time for like 2 quick questions.
Okay.
Mindy and Susan.
You said that you have compost that you make available to retailers?
Yeah.
What retailers?
Oh boy, I think Hatchery was one of them. Good one, yep. So they're around.
St. Louis compost.
St. Louis compost too. They actually bag it for us. St. Louis compost. Kirkwood, yeah, Kirkwood Supply down there. Absolutely.
When you were talking about the ICM program, did I misunderstand that sometimes you do dip the poinsettias?
Yeah, we will, with the poinsettias, we will actually drench them with a pesticide. It's called Safari. It's a systemic pesticide that goes up into the plant material. We don't spray the foliar, just drench it right to the soil line. Plant takes it up, and then it has a nice residual of 8 weeks of protection. And that's when we typically don't see any plant or any insects coming on it, or pests coming on the plants. It works very well. We don't have to do it. We do it just because it's a safeguard. We only have one crop, because come October, when all the bugs are coming inside, it's much more difficult to put an order in for 1,000 poinsettias in October of this quality, this size. So I like insurance. Much as I hate paying for it, I like insurance. So it works very well for us to, it makes me sleep at night.
Derek, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Sorry, Joan,
No, you're fine.
I ate into your time.
Oh, it's all in the story document. Okay.
Can everyone hear me? All right. So, as Derek mentioned, this year's theme is poinsettia. So, with both the theme and the plant material, we have a unique opportunity to have a bilingual show. So, signage is in English and Spanish. We also have a Spanish visitor guide and an English visitor guide. And this kind of plays to the theme of poinsettia and their native range. So they're native to Mexico. I think it's, I would have to check our story document for the exact range, but they're native to portions of Mexico and Guatemala. Also with the kind of the design of the show, it's almost like a Mexican courtyard, a hacienda. So it all kind of lines up together to play nicely into like a bilingual show. So that's something that we're piloting this year. So just be aware of that. We do have a PowerPoint presentation in the show about the garden's production of its poinsettia crop, as well as kind of how they're produced in the horticulture industry, as well as the history of poinsettias in floral displays here at the garden. We also have kind of talk about the family, Euphorbiaceae. So poinsettias are, we love our poinsettias, but there's a lot of diversity within that family. So if you guys have been to the desert shows, you know that a lot of the succulents that you see are also members of Euphorbiaceae. So lots of cool stuff in the show. Again, most of the stories are in the story document. But yeah, it's all things poinsettias. And there's a lot of cool stories about it. There are different legends about the poinsettia in Mexico. There are historic records that the Aztecs used them in religious ceremonies as well as for dyes and even medicine. And it's also incorporated into several Christmas legends in Mexico. So the poinsettia has a lot of really neat stories that you guys can share with the public. But that's just kind of an overview of the show. Do you guys have any questions? Or? Yes.
Am I wrong? Did someone last year say that the poinsettias are poisonous to animals?
They are. So that's something that comes up in the show too. Poinsettias are not lethally toxic. Based on multiple research studies, the toxicity level, you basically have to eat 500 leaves for every 50 pounds in order to get
an our animal, they're not poisonous.
Right. I did have a coworker who used to work at a vet clinic. I loved her description. Because around this time, they would get a lot of calls for for pets that ate a poinsettia leaf, and she would have to say, it's like, the worst thing that's going to happen is that your pet's going to get sick or might have, yeah, so it's going to, typically they get rid of the poinsettia out of one end or the other, so. But nothing that would require a visit to the vet unless your pet actually ate several poinsettia plants.
Some people are allergic to them, actually, the sap of euphorbia. They will break out in a hive or a rash.
Yeah. But nothing lethally
Well, but that's a piece of information that's helpful.
Yeah.
Because people don't say that.
Yeah, so it's, for the most part, they're not lethally toxic to most people, so.
It's a bit like being allergic to latex. It's kind of the same chemistry.
Right, yeah.
Like being allergic to latex.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and we also have like a top 10 fact video in the lobby, and it goes into that. Any other questions? Yes.
Is there going to be a handout, so you can find little pictures?
Yes, so the visitor guides are in both the English and Spanish versions. I'm not sure if they're out on display yet, but we do have our whole order in. So yeah, lots of great stories. We have a seek and find. There's also an experiment in there, because you can actually, if you have red poinsettias, you can actually pull the pigment out of those bracts and use it to test the pH or the acidity of different solutions. Yeah, so do your own chemistry experiment at home. So there are instructions for that in the visitor guide. So that's really neat. There's also a couple of YouTube videos that kind of showcase how to perform the experiment. And they test out different solutions so you can actually see the color changes in the test strips that you make from the poinsettia pigments. Yeah. Poinsettias, again, have a lot of great stories that we can share with our visitors. So there's a lot to talk about. You guys will have plenty of great stories. Any other questions?
Jen, so usually the most common questions I get this time of year, they find out I work at the Botanical Garden. They wonder, what do I do? My poinsettia's dying. Why is it dying? I always get that question, even right before a holiday. Most of the time when people buy poinsettias, they still have it in the sleeve, and that holds water. Most of the time they're overwatering their poinsettias. Or they have it right by their heat register, their vent, that'll also dry them out. So if anybody asks you, check the pot, make sure they're not overwatering it. That's a very common one. Also ask, when you took it out of the store, how cold was it outside? Did you have it sleeved? Some people, I love walking by Home Depot and they're just out there in 20 degrees carrying a poinsettia right to their car. Well, that's dead, so.
Did it kill it pretty well?
Yeah, it'll knock it back pretty good. You'll start seeing the leaf curl that night on those poinsettias.
And they just don't go back at all?
You can't even pinch it back at that point. I mean, you just burst the cells in that poinsettia leaf and then it opens it up for disease. And this time of year with darkness and cold and overwatering, you'll get disease. So.
That's also a good time to point out that if they have plant care questions, that they can check out the Center for Home Gardening.
Absolutely.
That we also have gardening help, hints and tips, and other information on our website. So that's always something to keep in mind when you get those questions, is that you can also direct them to our website as well as Center for Home Gardening. Yes.
Can I follow up on that? If you're determined to take somebody a poinsettia and it's 20 degrees, is there a box? Is that a box? I mean, what is that?
Derek, can you address this, sorry, this question?
Sorry, I just asking, how do you transport poinsettias then?
Oh, you need to sleeve them. Typically a store or a nursery, if you go, they can put the cardboard or the cardboard paper around them from the pot up. That'll keep the wind off of them. That's what typically gets them more than anything. The bad thing about when they sleeve them, they usually break a lot of the lateral branches, as you all know, so it's kind of a catch-22. If you can find a good day, it's 55 degrees outside to go get poinsettias, that's when I go. That's true.
We actually have another question.
Is it poinsettia or poinsettia?
I call them poinsettias. I'm not sure if there's an official,
No.
I think however people
It's
want to
just
pronounce
American
it.
lingo, how
Yeah.
to pronounce everything.
Yeah.
Just as long as it's not poinsettia, right?
Poinsettia, I've heard that.
Poinsettia?
My grandma always said
There
poinsettia.
are also multiple common names for the poinsettia. Like in Mexico, they were not very fond of, I think it's Joel Robert Poinsett, the American ambassador who brought the poinsettias to the U.S. So they call it like flower of the holy night, the flame flower. There's multiple common names for the poinsettia. And again, that's the name itself can be a story as well. Was there another?
I wanted to ask Derek, it made me think of this question. Working in a flower shop at Christmas, we used to tie the various, the laterals so that they wouldn't break off when
Sure.
they were sleeved.
Sure.
Do you have to do that?
We don't do that, no, because a lot of the times they do that where they push them lateral branches up so then they can pack more into a truck and pack more onto a rack. We like them to spread. Yeah, they're very fragile. We like to spread them out as much as we can. A poinsettia will grow in as much space as you give it. So spacing is so important to us when we produce the poinsettias. I mentioned, we like to put our uprights right next to each other. That way they're looking for light. We want that height. We want our pinch plants to be nice and spread out in some cases. So that's where we'll give them more space on the bench because then they can spread out to where the light's at. If we put them all together, you're going to get that. So answer your question as far as tying them, it depends on when you do that as far as when they're growing. Usually when it gets to the point of winter time, most growers are growing with just plain water. Plain water will actually make the bracts be more colorful and larger. So when you're adding just water, you're leaching out nutrients in the soil, which is most importantly potassium, which is going to give you the strength in cell walls. When you're leaching the potassium and watering with plain water, you're going to get more breaking with lateral branching. So when it's late, when they're setting their bracts, I don't think it's a great idea. But some cultivars, they can handle it. They have growth habits where they grow in a V. Some will actually grow or 90-degree angles from the stem. It just depends on which cultivar you use too. So long story short, do your research, which one, the cultivar you have for tying them up. Some are better than others.